Welcome in, everyone. Welcome to our weekly training here at the Hibbert Group and 10X. We're super excited to have everybody on the line. All right. If you guys can get a pen and paper, make sure you're able to take notes. You're not going to want to miss tonight's information. I want to thank our guest, Ms. Kiara, for taking the time to join us and really sharpen our skills and teach us all things SkySlope so that we can know how to properly input our information and documents within the platform so that we can get to the closing table, right? That's what it's all about. So Ms. Kiara Kirstensen, are you on the line? Can you hear me?
I am. Thank you so much for the intro. I just went ahead and shared my screen here as well, just to make sure everyone has that visual to go along with our training today.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So guys, we're super excited. Let's take the time right now. If you do not see your accountability partner on or your team partners on, please take the time to share the link. We don't want anybody missing tonight's training. We're of course going to be recording the call, okay? But we have our guest here who is taking the time to really show us how to efficiently upload our paperwork, how to navigate our real estate business. So let's make sure that everybody's on the line, all right? And get a pen and paper. I'm not sure how interactive you have it, Kiara, so you let me know if you hold questions to the end or if they can raise in the middle, you let me know. How does that work?
Absolutely. I will take breaks throughout just to make sure everyone's following along with me in case there's any questions before we change up workflows. So I'll break probably after every 20 minutes here. I also wanted to confirm we've got an hour, correct? What is your team restriction for this time block?
That's fine. Yes, listen, we're here to learn, so that the
Perfect.
power is there. So guys, with no further ado, I would be honored to hand the call over to our guest from SkySlope, Miss Kiara Christensen. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Thank you so
You're
much,
perfect.
guys. Perfect. All right, Kiara, the floor is yours. Welcome, everyone.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that intro here. Today, I will be your tour guide. So I'm going to walk through both the transaction management side of the account and SkySlope forms, just to show you as Florida agents all that you currently have access to, and also how the different products are connected to one another. So I have just a couple of slides here to share with you to get us started before I jump into my own demo account. Now, your brokerage will share an email that will allow you to set up login credentials. That is how you'll access the platform. So I'm going to jump right into my own demo account here today. We will still cover some of those little setup pieces for best practices, but keep that in mind. You will receive an email with login credentials or prompting you to set login credentials in order to access the platform that I touch on here today. So we'll go ahead and get started. As mentioned, we are recording, so you'll have this as a resource. I'll check in. We'll block out our session here. I'll check in every once in a while just to make sure that all of our questions get answered. And then we'll take a little bit of time at the end as well, address anything that might be a little bit lengthier that we might want to piece out and walk through together. So first things first here, what is included for you? Well, as a branch of eXp, you have full access to the transaction management dashboard and SkySlope forms. Now that's really, these two boxes here will be the star of our show here today. I'm actually going to start my workflow in SkySlope forms. So I'm going to actually have a brand new listing over in Orlando. So I'm going to reach out to my client, send over a listing agreement to get that process started. I'll do this through SkySlope forms and send this out for signature using DigiSign, our integrated e-signature tool, before we come back into the brokerage dashboard. So that's why I'd like to talk a little bit about our products first before diving in, is we have multiple parts of the SkySlope platform. That transaction management dashboard is going to be branded to your brokerage. It'll be where your admin team has visibility to the progress you're making on your property files. Now, SkySlope Forms is a working zone. You can include other team members. However, this is designed for our agents to really work on these contracts, send them out for a signature, and prepare these out prior to turning them in for broker review. So that's really what we're going to focus on here today, are those two sides of the account. However, in my demo account, I will also see SkySlope offers. This is fully available for you as well. So if you're looking for an offer management dashboard, we have that for you here, where you can manage your outgoing and incoming offers through SkySlope forms. So that will go ahead and we'll save that for another session here. We'll really make these first two boxes the star of our show today. Now, I'm here to answer any questions for you as we move through today's session, but wanted to call out our support team. We know that your job is not the typical 9 to 5, so we do not staff that way either. We have a 24-hour live support. You can chat, call, or email, whatever your preference. They are an amazing support team here, and they're not trained in just SkySlope, but they're really trained in real estate as well. So keep this team in mind as you move through your SkySlope account, regardless if you're working within the main brokerage dashboard or if you're working within SkySlope forms. So with that, I'm going to pop on over into my own SkySlope account. Now, I've already received my login credentials, so I'm jumping right into my SkySlope dashboard. Now, if you have already used SkySlope in the past and this dashboard does not look too familiar, that's okay. We're still in the right spot. We have our brand new agent dashboard, which is what I'm looking at here. At the end of our session, I'll switch it back to the legacy dashboard in case anyone is still using that side of the account or that version of this screen. But we're really excited for this new dashboard here, so just wanted to take this as an opportunity to highlight it for you and cruise around. So when I first log into SkySlope, while mine will have the SkySlope banner up at the top, this will have your brokerage logo. It will also hold your brokerage color schemes. So while mine is branded SkySlope in our demo today is going to stand as my brokerage. But here, this will have the color scheme and the logo of your brokerage. And that will be a good indication that I am on the transaction management dashboard. That means anything working through this status bar here, my admin team has visibility. You'll remember from our slide deck, we're going to start in SkySlope forms. Now, you do have the ability to use an outside forms tool, but that takes away half of the fun of today's trading. Today, I have a brand new listing, and I am not going to come into the brokerage dashboard to create a property file quite yet. So I'm not doing this until I have that listing agreement signed and I'm ready to notify my admin team that their work is ready to begin. So prior to coming in and creating that property file, I'm first going to use my apps menu up at the top to toggle right on over into SkySlope forms. Now here I'm working in a demo account. So I do have quite a few files that are already in progress, but I will go ahead and use that filter. I have all files versus the files that I'm working on. And in true SkySlope fashion, SkySlope forms is going to be organized using the tabs up at the top of our screen. When you first jump into your forms account, there's very little setup that needs to be done. SkySlope loves to have a ready-to-use platform, so we simply recommend the first time you jump into SkySlope forms, drop your name down up at the top right corner. Now here, I can dive right into my user profile. This will allow me to input information that is not subject to change. My license number, my email address, the regions that I service. I'm in a demo account, as you can see, I'm all over the place. But my brokerage name, license number, things like that, not subject to change. So jump in here, enter this information so that it can auto-populate within your forms. Using these tabs up at the top, I can then move to the next section underneath my team, and I can include any collaborators. So remember, SkySlope Forms is unique to the user. This is your working zone. So you have the ability to invite people to view or edit your files. So if you have an assistant or a transaction coordinator, this is a way to get them involved in your forms. Now, note the ability to invite others, but if you are a transaction coordinator or an assistant and you need access to an agent's account, they will take the same step. We do that intentionally just to make sure that permissions are correct across the board. So again, if you are a transaction coordinator or an assistant, let your agent know to include you in this share account. Once your team and your collaborators are all set, ready to go, last but not least, click right on over into libraries. Here I already have my specific boards that I'm connected to, including FAR here, which we'll use for today's demo. But I can search for any available association or regional libraries. So you can stack this as heavy as you need to make sure that you have access to all of the forms that we're sending out to ensure that we have these nice completed files. So that is going to wrap up our setup. Again, very straightforward, very quick. When you first jump into your own SkySlope Forms tool, drop that name down, complete out that user profile, libraries, and provide any team members access. From there, you're really ready to get started. We do have one other additional time saver, which is the use of reusable templates. However, this is more of an optional piece of setup. Now, templates here in SkySlope Forms is referring to the grouping of forms that I would like to collectively have on hand and pre-fill any information. So right away, just as we mentioned today, I have a brand new listing. So I might want to come in here and create a template for a residential listing. I'll indicate that representation. And we'll give this guy a quick name. So we'll just go ahead and say listing template, keep it easy. Now this is an admin feature, so you won't see this brokerage template option, but your brokerage does have the ability to pre-package together forms. So they might choose to go ahead and do that. Or you can filter your results to package these together by dropping that menu down and selecting the collection you'd like to work with. Here you can see I've got 165 forms to work with, so I can scroll right on through and I can begin packaging these together. I have that as is residential contract for sale or purchase. Let me scroll right on through. Do you guys have a formal listing agreement? Been working with California documents today, so I just need to, perfect. All right, so here we go. We'll go ahead, listing agreement, we'll include that. I'll scroll right on down, see if there's anything else we really want to include. Maybe we've got a little data entry form. All right, let's go ahead and include, let's say, a agency agreement. Perfect. We'll go ahead, grab that agency agreement. Sure, perfect. Just kind of grabbing these at random, guys. So disregard if these are not the typical forms that you would package together, but we like to go ahead, group those all together. And then when we move forward, we'll be able to pre-fill out our personal information. So I can see I've got my listing agreement. I know that these first two fields are subject to change simply because that seller, might be a different client each time. Those dates, of course, I would choose to skip, but maybe I'm always working with the same commission split. Great opportunity to come in here and pre-enter in that information. Maybe I'm always working with the same MLS board. I can pre-enter in that data too. So anything here that I'm seeing as repetitive information, I can go ahead and pre-fill within these blue fillable fields. All right, so once I go ahead and fill out these documents, we like to rely on the 80-20 rule. If 80% of the time you're changing this information, probably not a good use for a reusable template, but if 80% of the time that information remains the same, awesome time saver to take advantage of. I now have that template saved and ready to go. I can jump right on back to my in progress files. And I can get started with my brand new listing. Now, additionally, I can browse libraries if I need to send out a blank form or an editable document. And I know that my Florida agents were not heavy clause users, but if you do want to manage your own clauses, you can do so. But we'll take a quick pause, just check in on that chat Q&A. Are there any questions that we should address here before we dive in and we send out a listing agreement for a client of our own? How are we feeling? Oh, looks like that chat's pretty quiet. I'll just give it a quick second here, see if anybody else wants to ask before we move forward. Awesome. We'll keep our pace then. So I actually have a client of mine. He reached out to me today and he said, hey, Kira, I'd love it if you could list a property for me. Now, he's actually a seller I've worked with in the past. We have a great time together. I'm going to send over a listing contract so we can sign that document and we can move forward. So I'm going to get started here by clicking Create. And I'll indicate who I'm creating this on behalf of. So here I'm going to be the file owner. I'm going to indicate that I'm representing that seller. And I'll enter in my client's information. Now, as I mentioned, we've worked together in the past, so he is coming through with my internal directory. I can choose to check this box if I'd like to update this to any other representation type. Before I scroll on down and I provide out my property data. Now here, if I'm representing a buyer, I do have the ability to pull directly from the MLS. I do have an MLS number here just to demo that. There we are. So I've got this gorgeous property out on Trout Road. If this was my brand new listing, of course, it wouldn't pop up on the MLS quite yet since I don't have that agreement signed. But for today's demo purposes, we'll bring that info in, save myself some data entry. Before I choose how I'd like to name my file. So I can do either Trout Road, my primary client, or I can do a combo of both. Now, if you are starting a buyer representation and your client has not decided upon a property quite yet, no worries. Just simply remember to check this box since the default is going to want to pull that address. So if you skip this here, if you don't provide a property, you can move forward simply by naming it primary client. And I now have the option to choose if I'd like to start with a template. So this is why we walked through that template feature together. I have pre-packaged these forms. So I'll go ahead and select that template knowing my information is already there. And I'll click Create. Now the 3 forms that I pulled from my library assigned right on over to this Trout Road. So these came right on over from that reusable template. If I had any additional forms to add, I could pop in and grab them from my library. Maybe I have a document on my computer that I'd like to upload. I can go ahead and do that now. I need to shorten the name for that guy, but there we go. We'll pull in that sample form and upload that. And I can also choose to apply any additional templates. So if you'd like to package together those documents into smaller bits, feel free to do so since you can stack templates once you've created that file. Now here we'll have a chance to walk through the tabs up at the top of my screen. Now we'll do that naturally by selecting the forms that we would like to send out for signature. So I'll go ahead, I'll select that listing agreement. Let's also grab that sample form in order to move forward. So down at the bottom here, my action menu will pop right up. Maybe my client's a little bit more old school. I would have the option to download if I would like to grab some blank forms. Or I can take advantage of my fill and send, bringing us right into the fillable screen here to prepare out these forms. So I can see all of these blue fields are fillable. I'll include a termination date here. We'll push this right on out since this property has a nice price tag to it. There we are, street address. I can include that legal description, anything of the sort. I see that price is all set, ready to go. Maybe we'll mark this as an all cash. Same thing, I can include my percentage, my brokerage splits, anything of the sort. Up at the top, I have markup tools. So let's say this was an offer that I was preparing here, or maybe a counter offer had been sent in to me. I do have the ability to work these documents by either adding a redaction, highlight, strike through, or additional text. If my client, let's say, reaches out and gives me a call, he says, hey, Kira, let's jump in. Let's hop over to Starbucks instead. We'll meet up together. We'll sign these documents so you can answer a few of my questions. I might choose instead to print these forms. I also have the option to download if I have an outside signature tool that I'd like to use, or I can choose to share by email. Now, of course, this is not for signing purposes. This here is going to be fillable. So if I'd like to email an editable PDF, maybe to a team member to provide any corrections or take a look at what I've pre-filled so far, I can do so. Lastly, before we move into DigiSign, note the ability to import MLS data. So if you are working with a buyer and their property address changes around depending on those offers you're placing, you can always pull that data in at a later time. Of course, I'm excited to get this signed using DigiSign, so I'll come right on down to the bottom here and click Prepare for Signature, where I can see my contacts come through. So Michael, my seller, all set, needs to sign. I myself as an agent, I'm set as no action. I can update this once I'm in DigiSign, or I can preset that role here. But we're going to dive right into our e-signature tool to send this out for signature. This should be relatively familiar to you. DigiSign works like many of our e-signature tools on the market. You have all of the bells and whistles at the top of your screen. You can see your recipients and your signer groups. If you need to edit your recipients or that signer group, you can do so here. And any form that's coming from your libraries are going to come with initials, date and time stamps, signatures, text box, anything of the sort. The one thing that you do not need to do here within SkySlope is place your own signature blocks. Any required fields we're automatically going to include. We've actually met directly with the associations to make sure that these are mapped accordingly. And as you'll remember, I also uploaded a form to this packet. So this listing agreement, again, this is a Florida document, so that will come pre-mapped and coded. Any documents that I upload, I have the ability to apply required fields using DigiSign. So since I uploaded this form here, I can use my signature block and place where that needs to go. Now, you don't have the ability to change the style of text, but if you need to make that text larger for any reason, you can always drag. Oops, I knew I did that. Sorry about that. You can always grab the box, drag it, make it larger. The text will respond accordingly. So lots of great features here within DigiSign. Again, very much follows the standard e-signature process. Select any of the fields up at the top and you'll have an editing block appear to your left. To edit your signers or create a signer group, you can edit your recipients from that left toolbar as well. before coming right on down to the bottom and sending this out for signature. Standard process here. I have a subject line and I can draft an email body. SkySlope is taking a step into the AI world, giving this enhanced emails a try. Sending that out for a signature here. If I, as an agent, was required to sign this, I would have the opportunity to do it now. However, since I opted out of signing, from here, I'll go ahead and click I'm done. So my envelope has now moved. My forms have been prepared. And I can now track that outgoing envelope as it lands in my client's inbox. With that outgoing envelope, I have an action menu. So if you do need to make any corrections, resend, rename, or even see if your client has had a chance to open that, you'll have that action menu available moving forward. Thankfully, I actually went ahead and applied my own email address as opposed to my quote unquote clients here. So I can pop right on over and we can sign that document on my client's behalf. So here we'll have a chance to see the client signing experience. My agent is requesting my signature. And from the client view, they're going to agree that this is legally binding before getting started using the arrow at the top of the screen. Simply select the first required field. They'll be prompted to select a signing style. They can also choose to draw. Now, a big question we get with drawing is, can I save this signature? Not this time, but we do have a feature coming really soon, so you'll be able to save your signing signature there instead of using one of our pre-placed ones or signing it each and every time. Once my required fields have been completed, I can come right on down to the bottom here and click Finish Signing. As a client, I have the opportunity to download these documents at this time. And as an agent, I've received an email letting me know that that envelope has been complete. Now I also can toggle right on back over to Forms, refresh my screen here, and I can see that status is marked as complete. Now that is going to trigger these documents to land in my Signed Documents tab. So we officially sent this envelope out. Once we have confirmation that that envelope has been completed, we can toggle right on over. So here we can go ahead and see these two signed documents, my sample form that I uploaded and that listing agreement that we sent out using our FAR forms. Before we move forward, you'll notice this banner at the top of your screen. So your listing agent is collecting offers on SkySlope offers. So if I, as a buyer agent, if my client was interested in this property, that MLS number, pulling in that MLS data, would trigger the system to provide me with a quick action. So if my property that my buyer is looking at is available on SkySlope offers, you can actually simply select the box next to it and you can submit that offer automatically. You don't need to leave your SkySlope Forms tool. You don't need to return to the MLS, anything of the sort. If your client, again, buyer client, is looking at a property where the agent is accepting offers using that offers dashboard, quick action, you can send that right in. So that's fun because you don't need to email them at all. And you have full visibility, date and time stamped on the status of that outgoing offer. So I could talk about that tool for the rest of our session, but of course we've got some other things to cover. So we'll cover this a little bit at the end, some resources if you're curious to learn more. Now here, my Signed Documents tab. If I choose to use SkySlope Forms to execute these contracts, this Documents tab is going to match the Documents tab within my property files. This is also going to be a great sign that I need to turn around, return to the brokerage dashboard to let the admin team know that I have this new listing. So let's take a moment to discuss that for just a moment. I've received an email as an agent letting me know that these documents have returned to SkySlope Forms. They're complete. I have all of the signatures that I need. Now, in order to let my brokerage know that I have this new listing, I will need to create a property file to turn those documents in. So this should be the workflow that you're familiar with. You'll come right on up to the top here, that apps menu, and you'll use that to toggle in. Once again, I have that SkySlope branding purely because I'm working within a demo environment. But you will see the brokerage logo at the top left corner and the custom color scheme. From here, we're just allowing the system to pull the data that we've provided in forms into this brokerage dashboard. This is eliminating the need for us to text our file reviewers or send an email with any of these documents. This is where we're turning them into our checklist for that brokerage review. So I'll scroll down on my desktop here. You can see that I have all my transactions, all of my listings. I have the rest of my home screen icons, my archives, task and reminders and working docs, and the ability to create a new file here by dropping this little create new down and selecting what is most applicable for my role. Here today, I've been working with a listing agreement. So of course I would start on the listing side. However, if I was representing a buyer, I would not have the listing to begin with, so I would start under transaction. Now, this is going to introduce us to Miss Sky. She is your listing file assistant. Her role is to assist these property files and have them learn and grow as they make their way to the close. And what she does right now is pull all of that information from SkySlope Forms. So once again, if you're choosing to use an outside forms tool to complete out your contracts, you would create your property file here by typing in that property address. I use SkySlope Forms today, so I'm going to click right on over, locate the file that I was just working on in order to bring this all together. You'll already have your office pre-selected. I'm in a demo account, so I'll grab this here. But lastly, we'll select what type of listing is the most applicable to our property type. Today, I was working with a Florida listing. I'll select this just for an example. And you'll see that property price is already available. It's pulling directly from the listing agreement. So the goal here is just to confirm that this information looks correct and provide back anything that we chose to skip. I don't like to speak to commission during training since everyone does this a little differently. So if you have any questions on commission, check in with your admin team. Those listing dates all set, ready to go. And lastly, I'll just enter in any of my client's information that was not asked in that agreement. Confirming everything looks correct, this workflow should be a bit familiar to you since we're simply creating our listing file. This will bring us right into familiar territory where our brokerage has curated our listing documentation. Now, keep in mind, I'm working in a demo account here today. So this is calling out California Forms Residential Listing Agreement. Disregard. This will work the exact same way for you. Your checklist will just be full of documents that you're used to seeing. Now here, once I've created that property file, as a call out back to SkySlope Forms, anytime you complete out documents using Forms and DigiSign, your Signed Documents tab in this working zone is going to match the Documents tab in this property file. So note that I did not need to download these documents from forms. Note that I didn't need to pull these in from my inbox. Instead, they are all here waiting for me in that Documents tab, so I can assign them on over to the checklist for review. But let's take a look at our checklist here before we do just that. I'll actually take a quick pause, check in to see if there's any questions. I know I'm rolling right on through our content, guys, but I do have resources to provide you with after the fact to break down today's session into much smaller bites. Oh, good question here. The question came in, are the documents pre-filled? Now, if you'd like to, if we're referring to the documents that are coming into the Documents tab, yes. The documents that land here are fully executed. So anything that lands in this tab here, this came from forms. So all prepared out within SkySlope forms, and those nice completed documents are landing here. These are ready for us to turn in for review. I can actually hover my mouse. Let's see, my pop-up blocker is enabled. There we go. But if I hover my mouse, I can actually see, I don't know if you guys can see that. Let's see if we can bring that up a bit bigger. Boop. So here I can see I've got that DigiSign verified, my client's information. And if I scroll right on down, I'll see that initial ready to go. Great question. We also saw another one come in. Where can we find a copy of the recordings? Support.skyslope.com has our on-demand pre-recorded trainings. But once we wrap up this session here, I'll send that on over to your admin team to distribute. Awesome, guys. Again, feel free to use that chat if you have questions as we move right on through. And we'll open it up at the end with some time to address any questions that might be a little bit more in depth. But let's bring us right on back to our checklist. Here I have my listing documentation. Now this is my source of truth. This is where I'm turning in documents for review. And then true to SkySlope nature, the same as if I'm using my email address or if I'm using DigiSign, we're never turning documents directly into this checklist. Instead, we're going to send everything on over to that Documents tab. We do that to provide our agents a final review. Because these documents auto-import from forms, we just like to give you an opportunity to review them first rather than auto-assigning them in. So since I know I have a listing agreement and an agency disclosure signed and ready to go, I'll click into that Documents tab to finalize my process. I'll check my listing agreement, and using this action menu here, I'll click Assign. I'm noting that little required stamp and this additional paperclip. Let's do the exact same thing for that agency disclosure. Perfect. I see this addition of a paperclip under my assigned column, letting me know that my checklist has changed. I can see that status is now marked in review as opposed to that red required. Now we're going to spend the rest of our session here discussing ways to turn documents in for review. I really just wanted to spend the beginning there highlighting the forms workflow, simply because it is going to be the most minimal amount of clicks. So more really the most automated workflow there is to take full advantage of forms and DigiSign. Send those right on off for signature here. They'll always land in the assigned Documents tab. But of course, we know our clients sometimes go rogue. We cannot control everything that they do as much as we wish we could. So there's always the chance that my client here, Mr. Scott, he printed out these forms. So he received them as a signing. He received them as an e-signing, decided to print them out. The man loves paper, big paper guy. So he printed those out. And I now have a packet of forms sitting in my inbox. So easy, I can go ahead and navigate right on over to my inbox, where I see that my client here has attached that listing packet. Well, as we know, within our SkySlope property file, that property-specific email address serves as a little lifeline. So any document that's provided out to us, we can simply forward, or again, wet signatures, I can scan them in as one big packet, and I can use this email address to get these documents into this tab. So I'll go ahead, copy that email address, come right on down to the bottom here, and I'll click forward. I can go ahead, paste that address, that attachment is there ready to go, and we'll send that right on off. Returning, close that one, returning on back to our checklist, we'll refresh our screen. I can actually see nothing has changed. And remember, that's exactly what we want. We're never turning documents into this checklist without that final review option. So instead, we'll drop that in the Documents tab. Of course, it's not here yet, but we'll go ahead and reload that screen. I'll let my internet catch up with us here for just a moment. But really, anytime you go ahead and forward into that property-specific email address, those attachments will land here in this Documents tab. I don't know what's taking that guy so long. Pop over to that log. Let me go ahead and do that one more time. I think my internet just went a little bit funky. We'll copy that. Forward. And we'll send that right on off. Awesome. Confirmation that message has been sent. Refresh our screen once again. Interesting. I think my internet's just acting a little bit funky there. I'll follow up. But here we go. That document will land in this documents list. Now we'll strip any attachment. So any attachment that is included within that email will land here in your Documents tab. So it's looking for those attachments. You'll also have a copy of that email available for you here within the log. So if you're looking to refer back to the text or the conversation that's being had, you'll be able to locate that here within the log. You can actually remove that email, of course, when you see it pop up. You can remove that email from your inbox, knowing it's stored safely here within SkySlope. Now, if you do choose to use that property-specific email address to either scan in a packet or forward in a packet, you're most likely going to be working with multiple forms. And if that's the case, you can always choose to split. So I believe I have a listing packet here. Let's say I have a big packet. We'll go ahead and bring that right on in. I can drag and drop documents into this working zone here. So let's say I have this packet that I need to go ahead and split. Just implying that I have multiple PDFs that I need to turn in. You'll have two things that will pop up. Since I'm using a demo file here, I'm going to clear, but we do have an auto split tool that's available. It is learning and growing. So I like to say that right up front. If you choose to use auto split and assign, by giving it your very repetitively selected checklist items, it will learn your documents. So that is a fun one. But today, let's go ahead and divide this packet. I can see there's 30 pages. Let's divide this packet up into 3 separate line items and turn them in for review. I can start by clicking over in this list. Let's go ahead and say that this is going to be my disclosure advisory. Sure, just at random, we're grabbing here. Demo account, things are a little funky. So we'll go ahead and add that one in. We'll say that page 11 through 20, that is going to be, let's say, our privacy advisory. And lastly here, the remainder of our document, that will be, let's say, our fair housing advisory. So I'm grabbing these documents. I know that these forms need to be broken up. So I'll come right on down to the bottom, and I have the option to split this packet and send these documents right on back to my Documents tab. Or I can choose to split this and automatically assign these 3 line items. So we'll take full advantage of that shortcut. We'll click split and assign. Confirmation that they've been attached to our checklist. Let's navigate back over and see how things have changed. So I have my 2 in review, and as I scroll on down, I see other progress has been made. So I can see that I've got these 3 other documents that have been applied to my checklist. I can remove them if I need to by clicking that X, or I can take a look, see what document has been included by once again hovering my mouse over that little paper clip. Miss Jennifer Lopez signed these documents. We've got some great clients we're working with here. I'm happy with that disclosure being all set, ready to go. I do not need to text my admin team as I'm making this progress. They are already being notified via SkySlope. So anytime you see that status change to in review, your admin team has been notified that it's time for them to step in, review those documents, and provide you with any feedback that you might need as an agent to perfect your work. So when a checklist has been reviewed, you'll receive an email notification with the new status of those items. So here I can see my checklist has been updated. I can see that listing agreement has met all brokerage requirements, but this agency disclosure here is still marked incomplete. Well, that's okay. Here, that'll allow us to navigate right on back to our checklist. We'll find that document in this working zone. Oh, perfect. That was my email that was my internet connection that caused that little lag there from the email. I can see those 2 listing packets came right on over. But here, because we do separate out those line items, if this disclosure had any issues to it, I'd be able to reselect the document and capture the missing initial using DigiSign. Makes it really easy, again, to correct these documents as you're moving through. And your goal is to have those green completed statuses reflecting on those red required line items. As an agent, you'll really find yourself spending the most amount of time working within that checklist. And of course, navigating on over to your forms tool, that working zone. When you see a document on this checklist, that is a good indication to navigate on over, send that document out for signature, knowing full well when it returns back through DigiSign, it will also land in the Assigned Documents tab. You can turn that document in for broker review, change that status to in review, and you can use this comment section to communicate on anything that might still be pending. I can write "have this for you soon." Save that. It works like a digital sticky note. So dropping that down, date and time stamped along with the user that left it. Your admin team will see this comment and they can respond back to you as well. So we've really talked about the 2 different ways to turn documents in. We have one last way, it's the easiest, so it'll make it quick. But here, first thing, of course, you can turn documents in by using SkySlope Forms and DigiSign. You can use that property-specific email address. And last but not least, you can always drag and drop on this page. So if I have a form that's sitting on my computer, maybe a counteroffer was emailed over to me. I went ahead, downloaded that to work with it, but I now have that document to turn in. I can simply grab that from my desktop and I can drop it on the line item that it belongs to. Quickly marks that as in review. Once again, don't need to text anybody, call anybody, or send an email. I'm good to go, knowing SkySlope did its job in letting my admin team know that I've made some great progress. Lastly, I have been speaking about a listing this entire time, but I just want to take a moment to discuss that buyer role before we open it up for questions. Now here, I started on the listing side just so I can show that accept contract option. When an offer has been accepted for this listing, I'm going to move forward by clicking accept contract and convert this on over to a transaction. I'm not creating two SkySlope property files simply because I want to bring all of the documents and all of the work I've done so far and keep it in one location. So I would simply click create transaction and provide more information on the buyer contacts and the commission splits. I would then be greeted by a brand new checklist here to continue working off of. Alternatively, our listing might fall through. And if that's the case, we can go ahead and indicate that that listing needs to be withdrawn. However, please upload any cancellation paperwork prior to marking this as a withdrawn listing so your admin team can review that paperwork first before approving. Let's go ahead and back out of this property file. I've been hard at work working on that checklist. This is going to remain as an active listing for now. We'll come right back into our dashboard here, and I can scroll on down and I can see my recent listings and transactions. So here I'd be able to jump in right away, continue working on my in-progress listings, take a look, see my transactions that are scheduled to come to a close. If my admin team does approve those cancellations, they can always reactivate. I just simply need to reach out. And when that property file comes to a close, I'll be able to find that here under my archives. Now, your admin team is heavily relying on you to complete out those checklist items in order to close those properties on time. So I just want to go ahead and scroll on down here and highlight this little subsection, close transactions to be archived. If your property file passes the closing date, your property file will land in this little subsection, simply implying your admin team is keeping an eye on it. The request is to complete out all of those incomplete items prior to the close date to ensure that everyone is getting paid on time, and your admin team can review all of that paperwork, processing it, making sure all contacts and vendors are happy. I can then access my archives at any time if I need to go back and revisit that information. And as a reminder, I've been working out of our brand new agent dashboard, but some of you might be more familiar with a dashboard that looks a little something like this. So here, this is our legacy dashboard as opposed to the new agent dashboard. So you can see that little comparison here. Same status bar running across the top of your page. Rather than having you click into individual icons, we instead make your action buttons available here. So I can view my transactions and listings. I can jump right back into my forms files. And I can even keep an eye on outgoing DigiSign envelopes, all from this main dashboard here without needing to use my apps menu to navigate. If you're familiar with this older dashboard, the legacy, you will still start in SkySlope forms. Everything that I covered here today works exactly the same. You'll just jump right on over, switch into SkySlope forms to draft up that listing agreement or prepare that offer. And you'd come right on into your home screen here and either create a listing or create a transaction. Lastly, you always have access to that amazing support team. So I'm going to click right on over. SkySlope support, as I mentioned in my slide deck here, has tons of information for you. So you can search for a specific term or action that I covered here today, or you can browse tutorials by product. So these first two is really what I covered during today's session. But if you're looking for maybe a deep dive into DigiSign, or you'd like to explore the offers dashboard, we have these tutorials either by step-by-step instruction. We have full-length on-demand training sessions and printable resources. And of course, a call out to that amazing support team. That email response, chat response, the ability to chat right in is my personal favorite. They can even remote in and see your screen. I'll go ahead, bring that on up here. Moving forward, you do have weekly on-demand trainings available, so you can always register for generic trainings. Today, we wanted to speak a little bit more to those FAR forms and your brokerage-specific items. However, if you do want to recap this information, that on-demand training is available for all of our SkySlope products. Live chat, along with a recommendation there to bookmark support.skyslope.com. And that is going to wrap it up for content here today. I know that I've talked your ear off, so thank you so much for sticking with me. I know it's a ton of information here, but we really like to give you the full workflow so that you can dive in, really target the areas that you might have questions on using those resources that we have available. But of course, happy to address any questions that you might have. So feel free, you can drop those in the chat, or if you would like to unmute, not sure what the rules are here, but if you'd like to unmute, more than happy to take questions out loud as well.
Hey, I am the partner of Jeff who coordinated this. Guys, if you thought that this was interesting, drop some fires for Kiera in the chat box. If you thought if you found one thing to be helpful, like I learned so much that I did not know in this little training.
Yay!
Great training I needed. Yes, exactly. Guys, if you have any questions, now is the time.
Yeah, ask away. Definitely here to support you. I did see Molly jumped in with a question. How do you list lot lands without an assigned address, but a parcel number? Great question. So here we recommend best practice, enter in the parcel number as your actual address number, and then just enter in lot or something along those lines. You can get very general with those names. But it just needs to have that sitting in the right format. So the system is not intuitive enough to be able to see zeros. So if you do need to enter in 000 and then a parcel or then a main street, whatever you need to do, lot at, however that works, the system is definitely not intuitive enough to call you out if the name isn't like a formal address. So you can make it work, and you can always go back in there and update that title or update the name of that when you do in fact have more of like an assigned address. Great question. We get a lot of questions in regards to the ones that don't have like formal setup.
Any more questions before we end, guys? We got 2 minutes to 8. Any more questions? Y'all, that was the most robust, thorough training I've been through in a long time. I actually didn't even realize. I did realize, but what did it even sound like a recording, y'all? Like it was so like smooth, right? Like it was real good. But if you have no more questions, guys, if you want to wrap us up, Kiera.
Sure. Absolutely. That is really it. If you would like to bookmark support.skyslope.com for all of those resources. Hope you like the sound of my voice because all of our on-demand trainings might also be me. So I hope that's okay. But jump on. You can skip around in those sessions as well. Target areas that you might specifically be struggling with, or if you just end up with a listing, let's say a month from today and you'd like to recap now that it's live for you, this is a great resource.
All right. Thank you so much for spending your evening here. We know you could be doing so many other things, but you're here with us this evening. Guys, I don't know if you know this, especially if you're with EXP, that's how we get paid. So when you see those red things flashing, that means you got to get on top of your stuff and upload those documents. So that's our time. Y'all know how I like to end. Love, peace, and real estate.